we will move to our second panel of the day, and we have with us Nina Deeb, the Ontario Federation of Trail Raiders and Ontario's Trails Preservation Alliance, and we have Wilderness Committee. So we will start each witness combined. You have a 7 minutes, and we will start with Nina Deeb. Please introduce yourself, and the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. My name is Nina Deeb. I've been a full-time real estate broker in Ontario for 30 years. I've studied real estate and land for 31 years. It has been presented that these amendments would expand protected spaces we have in the province of Ontario by introducing 2 new classifications of provincial parks that allow for increased outdoor recreation. And there's something very vague that's also being added. I'm supportive of this bill with one amendment and adding some necessary guardrails. This bill as written gives the province of Ontario the ability to create new park classes through regulation. The bill authorizes the Lieutenant Governor and Council Cabinet to make regulations, adding new classes of provincial parks and specifying objectives for such parks. This is vague. The government could create new categories, could reclassify lands, including existing parks which could be downgraded, inventing new park categories which could prioritize tourism or any other provincial priority over the ecological integrity of existing wetlands and animal habitats. Consultations must occur. If it's public land and public money, the people of Ontario must continue to be consulted with. As a neighbour and steward of an urban park, it is noted that while the population increases and more people are using the park, the intended size of the park is shrinking. The Huron Natural Area, which I have been defending in my local municipality, was originally planned to be 369 acres. However, it's now being developed on 4 fronts. Lands that were intended to be acquired and added since 1992 have not been. One of the 3 ponds that visitors to this urban park area visit is wholly on land owned by a developer. I discovered that my neighbor lands are owned by a developer. The local residents discovered that the wetlands buffer minimum had been reduced to only 30 meters by provincial legislation last year. Wetlands function as filters and cleaners of our groundwater, in addition to being a habitat for wildlife. Within Ontario's parks, public spaces, and conservation authorities, there are many changes that are being made simultaneously. Ontario's 36 conservation authorities are being reduced to 7. Ontario's most valuable waterfront lands are being privatized. Provincial protections are being removed from parts of Wasaga Beach, removing 60% of the world's longest freshwater beach. From the fall economic statement, almost the whole of the exhibition place grounds are being captured as part of the Rebuilding Ontario Place Act. This contradicts the statement of the goal is addition, not subtraction, because we are losing parklands that we already have. MPP Gilanis remembers when option 9 was tried in her community as Ivanhoe Park. The new class of park meant that it was a non-operating, no maintenance or service class of park. The City of Timmins had to step in to pay to keep the provincial park open. A provincial park is provincial responsibility. A shift to park class must not mean deregulation of existing parks or downloading of the operation and maintenance of a provincial park onto the local municipality. Protected public spaces must not be developed or contracted behind closed doors. The public can't lose access to the public lands, as is the case with the Ontario Place lease for 95 years. These business arrangements and enhancements to public lands must also provide a benefit to the people of Ontario. Consultations are reduced to just conversations. When the conversations take place 11 days after the decisions are made and the lease is signed. Duty to consult is with Indigenous nations applies to the federal and provincial government. It's a constitutional requirement. The people of Ontario have a role to play. We should be consulted too, prior to the decisions regarding valuable public lands are made. This new class of park avoids public consultations in the future. This is why I suggest to remove by amendment option 9, such other class of parks as may be prescribed by regulations. I am supportive of adding more parkland and access to natural areas with necessary guardrails to protect the land, water, and habitats. This includes human habitats. Adventure parks don't just bring adventure, they also provide education and hundreds of jobs to their local communities. Adventure parks help to attract tourism and supports to the local community. Communities that have few economic resources could thrive with development of adventure parks, and this is a positive change. There is opportunity to build economic bases and to improve access to nature. Park building will give even more people the opportunity to enjoy and explore beautiful Ontario. It will give our educators more options for education, and our students can experience what nature has to teach them. Thank you for bringing this bill forward. And like I mentioned, I am supportive of it, but I would like to see some amendments to be added. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina. We move to the Ontario Federation of Trail Riders and Ontario's Trail Preservation Alliance, and we have with us Lisa Thompson, but we have a colleague of yours who is going to join us via Zoom. So please introduce yourself and your title.
Thank you. So hello, I'm Lisa Thompson, and online with us is Carolyn Richards. She's in, she's in the Kawartha Lakes. I will be doing the speaking, but we'll both be answering any questions. So good afternoon, Chair, members of the Legislature. Yeah.
It'll be toward.
Sorry. Yeah, is that better? Yeah, thank you. My name is Lisa. I'm the Executive Director of the Ontario Trail Riders, representing thousands of motorized users across Ontario, including off-road motorcycle riders. Our organization is also a founding partner of the Ontario Trails Preservation Alliance, which includes all motorized users and has support of the SHAD Foundation, as well as the Ontario Conservation Accelerator. So the Ontario Trails Preservation is working to protect, maintain, and build Ontario's trail network for all users. I'm here today on behalf of the OTPA to express our support for Bill 26, the Provincial Parks and Conservation Reserves Amendment Act of 2025, and to offer a few suggestions to ensure that it is inclusive of all responsible motorized recreation, including off-road motorcycles, off-road vehicles collectively known as ORVs under the Ontario Off-Road Vehicle Act. First, let me say that I am very appreciative of the vision behind this bill. The creation of new park classifications, particularly the adventure class parks, is a forward-thinking approach that recognizes how outdoor recreation is evolving. It acknowledges that people seek a wide range of experiences, from rock climbing and treetop trekking to mountain biking and motorized uses such as snowmobiling, ATVing, motorcycling, and 4x4ing. By creating an adventure class park, this provides flexibility to deliver outdoor activities in a way that balances recreation with conservation, and it also reaches a broader spectrum of recreational users. This is especially important for motorized trail users. Adventure class parks, as currently described, mention snowmobiles and all-terrain vehicles. That is a step in the right direction. However, the language does not include other motorized users that fall under the current Off-Road Vehicle Act, such as off-road motorcycles and side-by-sides. A key point I would like to address is that off-road motorcycles are a legitimate and widely practiced form of outdoor recreation and has been for generations. Riders are often some of the most active volunteers when it comes to promoting safety and trail maintenance, environmental stewardship, and forest management. By including the term off-road vehicles, this legislation would acknowledge our contributions and clarify these activities are considered compatible with the Adventure Class Park model, provided that they are managed responsibly. Responsible motorized recreation offers significant benefits. Off-road motorized recreationalists support local businesses and communities. The economic impact of the off-road industry in Ontario, not including snowmobiles and 4x4s, is $2.8 billion, while creating 10,330 full-time jobs. It also pulls in $365 million in tax revenue. Riders and clubs are the primary investors in trail maintenance and development, donating and volunteering their time for ecosystem stewardship. And we work collaboratively with landowners, including the province, the municipalities, and conservation authorities. The work that our volunteers undertake benefits all users, including hikers, cyclists, and equestrians. Motorized trail users contribute to rural and local economies through tourism and related spending. By specifically recognizing all ORVs in legislation, Ontario is acknowledging and supporting the economic and social benefits of our activities while continuing to protect natural heritage. As already noted, we fully recognize the importance of conservation and the protection of our ecosystems. Adventure class parks that are designated to provide opportunities for outdoor recreation that may require some landscape alterations. Responsible management, guided by clear rules and enforcement, ensures that motorized recreation can coexist with conservation goals. Ontario's motorized trail community has a strong track record of promoting sustainability, minimizing environmental impacts, and educating riders on proper trail etiquette. We are committed to continuing this stewardship. I would also like to encourage the legislature to involve motorized trail organizations like the Ontario Trails Preservation Alliance, which includes all motorized user groups that fall under the Off-Road Vehicle Act, in the development of regulations and management plans for adventure class parks. Collaboration ensures that regulations are practical, enforceable, and aligned with both recreation and conservation objectives. Collaboration also fosters mutual understanding and respect between motorized users, non-motorized users, and park managers. In conclusion, we support Bill 26 as an important step towards modernizing Ontario's provincial park system. It creates a framework for adventure class parks that recognizes a range of outdoor recreational activities. To make this legislation truly inclusive and effective, I respectfully ask that it includes the term off-road vehicles and the stakeholder input from responsible users, groups like the Ontario Trails Preservation Alliance. Sorry. By doing so, by working together, we can provide a sustainable model for adventure class that balances environmental protections with access to diverse outdoor activities. We stand ready as the Ontario Trails Preservation Alliance and the Ontario Federation of Trail Riders to work with the ministry, park authorities, and legislature. We thank you for your time.
Thank you, Lisa. We move to our third witness. I would like to call upon Wilderness Committee. Please identify yourself and your title.
My name is Katie Krylov, and I work as the Ontario Biodiversity and Protected Places campaigner for the Wilderness Committee. The Wilderness Committee is a national charitable organization that has worked for over 45 years to protect nature, defend wildlife, and fight for strong climate action. The WC Ontario office works to advance the expansion of protected areas in the province to meet the federal target of protecting 30% of lands and waters by 2030 as part of the global effort to halt and reverse biodiversity loss and as a nature-based solution to climate change. In this capacity, we have collaborated with community groups, ecologists, and First Nations to identify some key biodiversity hotspots in need of protection, including old growth and intact forests, wetlands, and proposed Indigenous protected and conservation areas. In 2023, we spearheaded a letter to the Minister of Environment, Conservation and Parks signed by 124 organizations requesting a meeting to discuss implementation of the recommendations of the Ontario government-appointed Protected Areas Working Group, which were submitted to the Minister in a report in 2021. That request was denied, yet we still maintain that those recommendations commissioned by this government, but only made publicly available through our Freedom of Information request, still represent the best path forward to advancing the expansion of protected and conserved areas in the province for the preservation of nature, biodiversity, and low-impact recreation. That report is available on our website. Our submission to the Provincial Parks and Conservation Reserves Amendment Act proposed in Bill 26 are grounded in the above context, as well as within the context of the mandate and purpose of the PPCRA. While we are encouraged to see this government take an interest in expanding parks and conservation reserves in the province, we do have concerns about the proposed amendments to add new classes of parks insofar as it may compromise the main purpose and principles of the PPCRA as follows. The purpose of this act is to permanently protect a system of provincial parks and conservation reserves that includes ecosystems that are representative of all of Ontario's natural regions, protects provincial significant elements of Ontario's natural and cultural heritage, maintains biodiversity, and provides opportunities for compatible, ecologically sustainable recreation. And also from the PPCRA, the following principles shall guide all aspects of the planning and management of Ontario's system of provincial parks and conservation reserves. Maintenance of ecological integrity shall be the first priority, and the restoration of ecological integrity shall be considered. Opportunities for consultation shall be provided. In respect to the proposed amendments to introduce 2 new classes of parks, we are concerned that the new classifications could compromise the intention and integrity of the Parks and Conservation Reserve system in terms of maintaining ecological integrity and biodiversity as the primary goal. In particular, for the class of adventure parks, the proposed higher impact activities that involve altering the natural environment, such as rock climbing, mountain biking, snowmobiling, and ATV use, are problematic as they can have serious short and long-term impacts on ecological conservation values. While we understand and support the stated goals of providing more opportunities for outdoor recreation to Ontarians, this should not in any way come at the expense of the primary goal of parks and conservation reserves. We also have serious objections to the proposed authorization under Bill 26 to allow the Lieutenant Governor in Council to add new classes of provincial parks and specifying objectives for such parks by regulation, bypassing the legislative process. This clearly violates the guiding principle of the PPRCA that opportunities for public consultation shall be provided in all aspects of the planning and management of Ontario's system of protected parks and conservation reserves. So that's the background. I do have very specific recommendations. So one, as a compromise to maintain both of the efforts to preserve the integrity, the ecological integrity of the PPCRA, we advance an additional amendment to the text of Bill 26 to preclude the reclassification of current wilderness, nature reserve, natural environment, waterway, and recreational class parks. So we ask that the committee recommend the adoption of the following additional amendment in full to the proposed amendments. And I have it written and it's been passed around. I'll read it out loud. Section 8, 1.1, despite subsection 1, the Lieutenant Governor and Council is prohibited from classifying as adventure class parks, urban class parks, a cultural heritage class park, or as any class of parks prescribed under subsection 119, any provincial park that was, as of November 1st, 2025, classified as a wilderness class park, a nature reserve class park, a natural environment class park, a waterway class park, or a recreational class park. So basically we're just asking that those parks that are classified for the protection of ecological integrity as the #1 priority should not be subject to reclassification. So protecting those values of parks as they are currently. And second, we recommend the removal of the authorization to the Lieutenant Government and Council to make regulations adding new classes of provincial parks and specifying objectives for parks. And so removing the following sentence in amendment such other class of parks as may be prescribed by the regulations. So yeah, thank you for the opportunity to put forth these recommendations, and we trust the committee will consider them. As always, the Wilderness Committee is available and eager to be involved in further consultation around expanding protected parks and conservation reserves in the province.
Thank you. Now we move to the first round of questioning, and we'll start with MPP Shaw from the official opposition.
Thank you, Chair. And before I begin, I'm just wondering, Katie, if you have a hard copy of the amendments that you talked about?
They were sent, I think, by email this morning, but I do have hard
So if
copies.
you want to pass that to the clerk,
Yeah,
we'll...
sure.
So I'm going to get to you, but I just want to get a copy of your amendment. But I want to start by addressing Lisa and your organization's work. I want to say that, you know, in principle, we support this bill. We have a lot of reservations about the huge latitude and power that the government's given themselves to make changes. You've heard people here say they're concerned that the government will use this to, downgrade the classifications of, existing provincial parks, especially parks that are ecologically sensitive. And I want to commend your organization for recognizing that, right? You talked a lot about trail management and understanding. I wrote down what you said, which is that you can certainly balance recreation with conservation. So I really think that's a good and lofty goal. I want to just ask you about, your members spend a lot of time and probably money to maintain the areas that you use. This is a government that has continually underfunded or, reduced the funding to our existing provincial parks. And is this something that you think your members in their mission would like to see more active funding, more active management on the part of the government to maintain the areas that you enjoy?
So currently, if there is a classification change from Crown land to parks, motorized we're kicked out. So right now we are looking to have these protections because we have municipal agreements, we have access to Crown land, but with the obligation of the 30-30 as well as other commitments, once this change happens, our users are losing riding areas, which means we are not being able to spend money in those communities, and all of the money that we have put in up to this point is virtually gone. Although other user groups can use it, it's been our blood, sweat, and tears that have get impacted. So with respect to your question, is that although there's been less money funded, we actually, all the money that we have right now comes from our membership and our members, and then we're putting that into the trails. So one of the reasons why we are supporting this bill is because we want to be able to have access to the parks and enjoy them, and put our money and blood and sweat and tears into the trail network for our members to be able to enjoy.
Okay, thank you. That clarifies that for me. And I just want to, and so that you understand, our concern is not with how you use it or your users, but that it is properly managed and maintained. And we're kind of concerned that this government has not shown a very good track record when it comes to protecting species at risk, habitats at risk. The Auditor General shows time and time again that the provincial parks are underfunded, so it makes it really impossible to do that important balancing work between recreation and conservation that it sounds like it's a real priority for your organization. So thank you for that clarification. I'm going to just turn now, if I could, with the time that I have, to Katie from the Wilderness Committee. I want to just share with you that I'm really concerned with this bill, as you have said, because let's start with the fact that they have managed to take a bill that at some point was just an intention, a bill that was trying to help establish a urban park in the Windsor area, and they've used this, in my opinion, as an opportunity to put in some serious wiggle room for this government to make changes to our provincial parks that has alarmed many, many people, yourself included. And I also want to say that you talked about context. It's absolutely true that this is in the context of a government that does not seem to understand the fact that our wetlands, our nature is an interconnected system. They seem to think that it's okay to bisect lakes and rivers, and particularly when it comes to gutting the conservation authority's ability to protect our wetlands and to protect these lands. And so, I'm just going to quickly share with you, last year at committee, I asked the Minister, Graydon Smith, repeatedly whether they were going to create a streamlined one conservation authority, change it. He said, absolutely, I will quote you here. He said, I think I've been very clear in my answers today that we will continue to work with conservation authorities. At no point have I talked about centralization, so I guess that's your hypothesis of the day. That was me. So they said no centralization, but they've gone ahead and done that. So you can understand my reluctance to believe anything that they say, and you can also understand the Ontario's lack of trust when it comes to this government in nature. So do you want to just speak to the fact that this government doesn't have the moral authority, doesn't have the trust of Ontarians to put forward a bill like this?
MPP Shaw, point of order. Yeah, go ahead, please make it short.
Yes, the line of questioning here has nothing to do with Bill 26. So I think we should be keeping to Bill 26 than talking about something that is just going into consultation.
Okay, thank you. Please, MPP Shaw, relate your question to Bill 26.
26 is opening the Provincial Parks Act, and it's in Reserve Act, and this government has done a lot to open up acts like Bill 26.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the 30 by 30 target that we've been encouraging the province to adopt, 30% protected lands and waters by 2030. Currently, Ontario's at 11%. Pardon?
Seconds left.
Oh, currently Ontario's at 11%, so we're far behind most other provinces and territories on this. And the goal of that comes from the UN biodiversity framework. So the point of it is to preserve and protect and reverse biodiversity loss, and that
Thank
should
you very
always be
much. The time is up. The time is up. Now we move to the third party, MPP Sirjanik.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, and thank you for your presentations. I guess, Nina, my question would be, I believe you spoke a little bit around the regulation-making ability of the bill. Do you view it, that kind of regulation-making and handing that in the minister's hands and putting more power in the minister's hands? Are you concerned about that?
Yes, I'm very concerned about that. I like to partake in every level of government. I speak municipally, provincially, federally, so that takes away my voice.
What might be some risks, I guess, there in terms of putting more power in the minister's hands as it pertains to this bill?
No consultations, so the expert then becomes just the minister. So the attitude is just the minister just knows everything and doesn't need to consult with anyone in the province, and that's not the case.
Thank you. Lisa, is it? Lisa, thank you for your presentation. I'm curious around the tourism aspect of it and in terms of trail riders and how does that look like in the province of Ontario?
So not only do we have a lot, and our biggest concentration of riders actually come from the GTA, and we know there's no trails in the GTA, so everyone is traveling rurally. We also bring people in from Quebec because they really enjoy our trail network, as well as other provinces, and we actually have a lot of Americans that come up to enjoy our trail network. So we're bringing those people in, especially to small communities. We have a couple of our individual clubs that will hold weekend events. So even, I'll give an example of the town of Calabogie. We'll get over 200 riders in on a weekend, boosting that small rural economy, bringing in tourists that wouldn't necessarily go up that way. So it's something that we promote. It's something that's happening throughout the entire province. Our organization, the Ontario Federation of Trail Riders, which represents the motorcyclists, we have clubs throughout the entire province. So we have clubs all the way up as far as Sudbury, as well as concentrated in the city. On the call with me is one from Kawartha Lakes. So we are bringing people in to all sorts of areas.
Thank you. I mean, I think boosting our local and rural and northern economies is really important. Carolyn, do you have anything else maybe to add around the tourism impact of this bill, and does this bill kind of help satisfy the ability to bring in more tourism to our northern and rural areas?
I think it definitely does, especially for areas like where I am. I'm in Kawartha Lake, so I'm close to several provincial parks at the moment, and within riding distance of Algonquin Park. And so we have a lot of small communities that survive on recreation. An example being the town of Kinmount. It survives on snowmobilers and ATVers, and the town itself has actually built recreational parking to be able to welcome the recreational riders and have restaurants and washrooms that open specifically for that purpose, because that's how they survive in that small town. And it's just one example of many, many small towns in sort of central Ontario.
Thank you. I have a question, because I'm hearing a little bit of concern around environmental stewardship and motorized trail use. What best practices, I guess, would either of you recommend for the government to help balance that?
So and I can speak for Carolyn as well, as we work very closely with whoever the land manager is, whether it be the municipality or the county, and we walk together and we try and figure out what's going to be best. Nobody wants to, trample over anything that's any sort of endangered species whatsoever. Carolyn has been working very closely with Haliburton Highlands Lands Trust, for example, up in some areas, to work on solutions for issues. Carolyn, would you like to sort of speak a little bit on that as well?
She just needs to be unmuted.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, they just unmuted me. Yeah, so as an example, we actually have been meeting with the Haliburton Highlands Land Trust because there is an area up here called Milburn-Kendrick, and there is a landing turtle habitat in that area. So what we have been working on is the possibility of building a bridge that will take the off-road vehicles out of the wetter areas and reroute them around onto rocky areas to avoid that turtle habitat, and then to do some education pieces with signage and such, and possibly in the future some boardwalks so that people can enjoy the area but not disturb the habitat. And that's pretty common in our area for our off-road vehicle organizations, our clubs, to work with any sort of organizations or just the community in general to do some of those protections.
Okay, thank you. Chair, how much time is left on that? 1 minute. I guess maybe in the second or maybe a second round, we'll be able to touch on some other pieces. That's good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We move to the government side. MPV Benson.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to the witnesses for being here today and being part of the process. My question's for Lisa. I represent a rural riding, and I'm quite familiar with the rural provincial parks. Times are changing, people are changing, usage is changing, and you spoke in favor of adding the off-road vehicles. How do you think these new classifications reflect changing public expectations for outdoor spaces?
We know that more and more people are staying home. We know that the focus is that we want to have staycations. It's big for us. More people are going out, they're buying these machines, they're selling their places down in the United States. They're not traveling as far. There's a lot of people that used to travel to the States to go to similar like adventure parks, and now they have the opportunity or will have the opportunity to do it here. We know that there's still an increase in purchases of ATVs, side-by-sides, 4x4s, and off-road motorcycles. So being able to have a place to ride that's legal, it takes away some of the problems that maybe people might see in the city. So there's just so much opportunity because we have the people that, we have great relationships with a lot of municipalities, but being able to say we have a park that you can go to, so you can make it a weekend event, like a full staycation. You can camp, you can ride out of your campsite, go be able to enjoy your motorized activities, go back to your campsite, have a, do whatever you want to do with your family, and really make a weekend out of it. It's just, I see the opportunities are endless for these classifications, especially for Ontarians who really want to protect the province that they live in.
Yeah, and you said it right. Obviously, these aren't for right down in the urban areas, but I know in North Ontario, I've been there on my ATV, and it's a real economic driver. It's, it brings people from everywhere, and traditionally, people just want to get out, they want to ride, they're not out there to ruin the ecosystem. But I think it's a win for everyone. Thank you for that answer.
And as you said, being able to go out, and it's those adventures that families remember. There is this thing going on right now. They ask kids, what did they do what did they get for Christmas last year? What did we do last summer? Oh, we went ATV and dirt biking. It's those experiences.
MPP Gallagher Murphy.
Thank you, Chair, and my question's going to be directed to Katie Krylov. Thank you very much for everyone being here today in your deputations. Katie, as you probably are aware, our communities are changing. As I noted in the previous session of deputations, our province now has 15 million people, a lot of them newcomers. A lot of our communities in the GTA, GTHA, are getting larger and larger, including mine in New Market Aurora, where we do not have a provincial park. We have some trails, but we do not have a park. So when I think about a community like mine, and I speak to a lot of people who love the outdoors and will travel a distance, or they don't want to travel that far, I think about how our communities are changing and what needs to be done to really help our people in Ontario, because they have the right to enjoy the great outdoors that I think a lot of people come to this country for. So all of that being said, my question to you is, how do you think Bill 26 responds to this, the changing needs of our community?
As I mentioned, I am all for expansion of protected parks, of conservation reserves, of more protections for people to enjoy nature and recreate in nature. And that is not what I'm saying. I'm saying that those new classes of parks should not come at the expense of current parks that are classified as environment parks, that are there to protect biodiversity and to protect ecosystem services. I will point out that we are changing as a society, and part of those changes include climate change and terrifying losses of biodiversity. We continue to lose species to extinction. And Ontario is now haven for that. So we are also doing that. And so those are also changes that we need to confront, and that's in growing protected parks. And so again, I have no problem with these new classifications, and I would expect that they are new places, so they are additional, right? And in those places that you talk about that are more close to urban, where people are, they're experiencing sprawl, they're experiencing traffic jams, and they do need to get out into nature. When I go to Algonquin Park, I love to hike, I love to canoe, and I hope to see a moose. And I just don't think if suddenly we're creating ATV trails in Algonquin Park, those people who are going there to experience nature, in the quiet and the peace and quiet, and potentially wildlife spottings, they are not going to have those opportunities if all of a sudden on their hike they're encountering ATVs. And so that is what my suggested Section 8 addition no amendment is meant to prevent.
Thank you, I
Yeah.
appreciate that, because obviously we do want to protect our biodiversity. Just yesterday morning, I saw about 20 wild turkeys crossing the road when I was.
Thank you very much, MPP Gallagher Murphy. Your time is up. We move to our second round of questioning, and we will start with MPP Shah.
Thank you. So I'm going to go at this again, and I'm going to direct my questions to Katie. So for those in the back, let me repeat again. We also are not opposed to these classifications, the change, not at all. They need to be managed, there needs to be resources behind them, and we need to continue to protect our dwindling species. And the loss of biodiversity should be shocking to all of us. I'm going to share very quickly. I have a grandson. He was in the other room, and I heard him kind of cry, wailed, and I went to say, "What's wrong?" I thought he hurt himself. And he said, "Nan, will there be nature when I grow up?" That's the kind of anxiety that our grandkids should not be facing. It was shocking to hear him say this, young guy. So, yes, we need to take provincial parks as the front line to protect our loss of biodiversity. But we are not talking about the fact that these cannot coexist, adventure class parks or urban class parks. What I believe you're saying and what we are saying is this bill allows the government to reclassify existing parks, and that's what we're worried about.
MPP Shah, my apology for interrupting because there is a vote call. So we have to go, all of us, to vote call, and after the... I'm sure you can pick it up where you left when you come back. We will pick up where we left, and MPP Shah, you have 5 minutes left from your time.
Okay, thank you, Chair. And what I was saying before we had to go for a vote is that, at this committee, it's very, what the ministers say, you have to take to heart, but we've had experiences, for example, where a minister, MPP Graydon Smith said that they wouldn't be consolidating the conservation authorities into one. In fact, in October, they announced that they are. So what I was saying is, despite what has promised that committee directly to us, it often turns out not to be the case. So our concern, our healthy dose of cynicism and suspicion is well-founded. And so our concern with this bill is are not the two classifications, with the exception that we're hoping that both of these classifications will be well managed, but that people don't lose out when these reclassifications happen, and that there is clear and transparent consultation, which doesn't also happen when it comes to some of these decisions that the government and changes the government's making to legislation. So again, to be clear, the concerns that we share, and many of the deputies here have brought up, is that there is a clause in here that gives the government unfettered latitude to make other classes of parks as prescribed by legislation. I mean, this government already has Bill 5 to give them special economic zones, which suspends all the rules, all the laws and regulation in the province, including the Provincial Parks and Conservation Reserves Act. Bill 5 allows them to override any of those laws, so you can understand why we're concerned, particularly when it comes to sensitive areas like this. So, where it says such other classes of parks as may be prescribed by regulations, we also have a concern with that. And where it allows the Lieutenant Governor in Council to make regulations adding new classes of provincial parks and specify objections for such parks, concerned with that too, because the government has given themselves complete autonomy to make these decisions on behalf of the people of the province of Ontario and behind closed doors. So my question back, so to Katie from the Wilderness Committee, you proposed amendments to this bill. They seemed like reasoned amendments. I'm hoping the government will consider them. I don't actually, in my 8 years here, remember the government ever accepting an amendment that came from opposition. So I'm hoping maybe, hope springs eternal. But in the meantime, if you want to, with the time that's left, just go through these amendments and explain, rather than reading them, you could read them, but also explain exactly what concern they're founded on, because I think these are important amendments that you're proposing.
Is fair, and even reading the proposed amendments in Bills 26 don't seem to contravene. I mean, it reads as though the adventure class and urban class is referring to new additional parks that are not currently in existence. And so I think, yes, this amendment will just satisfy us in terms of the worry that we'll lose park land that is currently protected, with the priority of ecological health and biodiversity. And I mean, and public consultation. And I will point out that currently in the PPCRA, I would assume that any new park, so new adventure park or new urban park, will go through all of the consultation and assessments that any park has to go through. And I will point out too that current parks do have the ability to revisit management plans, right? So every park, current provincial park, has a management plan, and those management plans are meant to be reviewed by the province with extensive public consultation every 20 years. That has not been happening. So again, just as an example, Algonquin's park management plan was meant to be reviewed in 2018, and we've been asking the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks to fulfill that mandate of reviewing the management plan. And I will say, for example, again, Bon Echo Provincial Park in 2016 opened up its management plan because there was, and to allow climbing, rock climbing in the park. And that, I feel comfortable with that because it went through extensive review, environmental assessment, consultation, to be sure that the activity...
Thank you very much. The time is up for the official opposition. We will move to the third party, MPP Serjanik.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, I was wondering, and maybe I'll ask all three of you, if you know of other places in maybe, let's say, Canada, and then or the U.S., where you kind of see more, adventure class, whether it's, state parks or provincial parks, or even urban class parks as well. So I'm very curious to hear from you folks on that. Go ahead first if you know.
So the parks that I've seen have, not America, actually, Mexico and the Caribbean. I've been to adventure parks there, and like Explore in Mexico is exceptionally well done. I think they save nature, and it's an excellent educational facility, zip lining. There's a lot there, and it also brought economic opportunities to the area. So I have seen adventure parks done exceptionally well in other countries. Yes.
For me to answer this, I'm actually going to get Carolyn as well. We attend a conference every year. So Carolyn, can you answer on other adventure parks?
Vehicle conference in the U.S. every year called NOVAC, and it brings all the state partners together, the Bureau of Land Management, very similar to our management groups here in Canada. And so I can list 4 provinces that I've personally visited and ridden in these adventure type parks. California has, I believe, 32 of them. Nevada has them. Utah has them, and of course all of us in our industry know West Virginia is probably the most well-known, because it went from a state of mining resources to, when the mines were closed down, they had all this land and no revenue coming in, so the state actually brought in experts and created adventure parks in these mining areas. And so that is what many of the towns in the state of West Virginia live off of, is the tourism from off-road vehicles, as well as hikers and cycling and everything else. They're all multi-use trails, and that's what we promote as well. But West Virginia survives for the most part in the rural areas on these types of adventure parks.
I think she was.
Yeah,
okay,
I think
perfect.
so.
Okay, great.
Yeah. I don't know if you have any comments on this topic as well, or No, that's okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, that sounds great. I mean, especially like identifying lands that, you know, don't have that ecological necessarily like significance that can be repurposed and restored to some extent for those purposes. I mean, I think that is the perfect kind of idea for an adventure class park.
Katie, you spoke a little bit around, I guess, conservation and sustainability. Is what you're suggesting in the recommendations here, would that work in terms of kind of how do we balance what those needs are? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're just concerned about is safeguarding from reclassification of current parks without public consultation and without the proper environmental assessments and so on. And I mean, so the amendments that I've suggested, the one amendment, I think covers that and was crafted to cover that. And as I say, you know, so it precludes wilderness class park, nature reserve class park, natural environment class park, waterway class parks, and recreational class parks from being changed to or reclassified. But as I've said, there does exist the chance if you wanted to introduce, say, rock climbing into one of those parks, you can do, there are avenues to do that through the management plan that assures the proper consultation and environmental assessment. So yeah, in that case, and then in the other case, I mean, the main concern of creating new classes of parks without consultation, I think is problematic through regulation. I mean, are we going to see like parks that are mining parks? You know, like where mining is somehow compatible with a protected park? I mean, that's just a concern, right? Yeah, so I mean, I think the amendments I'm suggesting are respect the PPCRA's purpose and mandate as I outlined in my submission, which is primarily the protection of ecosystems and biodiversity.
Thank you. Lisa, I want to, I guess, pick up a little bit. I'm very interested in the tourism aspect of this. And is the current structures in terms of, you know, the roles that I guess your organization plays and Carolyn's organization plays, is that sufficient? Do you
1 minute.
Should you be more involved in that piece?
We would like to be, yes. We think that through the Ontario Trails Preservation Alliance, we would like to, you know, be in consultations and, you know, we have best practices. We'd love to share those.
Okay. So we're noticing folks from the USA, they don't have that in nearby, or like why are they coming here?
They are coming here because they think that we have the best trails. They like what Ontario has to offer. In Buffalo and some other surrounding states, they're starting to lose their access. And we have world-class trails in the province, and they come up every single year. Actually, there's a motorcycle show in January, and there's a big group, and they'd all come up to the motorcycle show just to buy their membership for the next year. So it's great.
Thank you very much. Time is up. We move to the government side. MPP Ben Soleh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been on trails in the U.S., Mexico, the Dominican. It's seen as a real economic driver, and I don't think their trails do compare to ours. This question's for all three. I think I'll have Lisa start. What role do you think legislation like Bill 26 plays in shaping the future of conservation and recreation in Ontario?
So one of the things that we're trying to work on is a provincial trails strategy so that we can have an intricate network of trails throughout the province. I think that with having trails through these parks, you know, the only opportunity that's going to bring is the ability to have more tourism coming in, as well as more users. Where communities can go out and enjoy nature. One of the things that people don't actually realize is that some people have mobility issues, and being able to be out on motorized vehicles, they can explore more of the parks that they may not have been able to. So whether it be on a side-by-side ATV or even a dirt bike, they can go out, explore nature, enjoy the trails, and then having like these adventure parks, having a dedicated space to go is so important, because then that way we can build the trail network. We know, the parameters of where it is, but then it's also an experience. The whole family can go, because if maybe only dad and a couple of the kids like to ride, mom can be off doing something else, it just becomes a weekend event instead of just a quick go through the trails to connect to something else.
That accessibility part, I've not heard that before, but you're right, that does make 100% sense. So Katie, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of legislation, legislation is there to provide oversight, right? To safeguard what is, and in terms of this, it's to safeguard public land, right? Public land, and we look at public land and we say, okay, some of this is going to be for logging, some of this is going to be for mining, some of this is going to be open to ATVing or whatever, and some of it is going to be protected for its ecological values, recognizing that that is a value that we share as a society, right? Is that value of nature and ecological and conservation, right? Conservation values. So whether that's carbon storage, habitat for animals, services like water filtration, those are values, right? And I do think there's a place for all of it in this amazing Ontario that we live in, that people come to the U.S. specifically because they like what we have here, right? And they like the nature here. And so what I want to see from this, so yeah, I'm just concerned that we maintain, that we have a balance, right? And the PPCRA has as its stated goal and was created with the acknowledgement of those natural values, those ecosystem values, those biodiversity values. And so while I support the addition of new types of parks, I don't want those values to be lost. And I don't want that oversight to be lost over our public lands. And so I think that the amendments that the additional amendments that I've put here just safeguard a little bit, right? To protect those values that and again, I think there's lots of types of parks. I think expansion of protected areas, 30% by 2030 is no small feat. And, and it's going to take resources, and it's going to take planning, and it's going to take public consultation, and it's going to take oversight, right, and legislation. And oversight that is in legislation. And I just want to ensure that the public good in terms of ecosystem protection is protected.
It is our intention to have a good balance. Nina, same question?
A lot of opportunity because Ontario is a vast and beautiful province. We have a lot of land, and we can responsibly grow our parks. And by doing that, they'd be economic drivers. Like there's certain areas that we could be adding to what we already have. Like as far as what will it do? Many areas. I've been all over Ontario. I've spent a lot of time in the provincial parks. I've spent time in Algonquin, in Pinery. I've been to Thunder Bay. So I've camped all over the province, and I do believe that adventure parks would take families like myself, and we would get in the car and we would go. So it would be great for both local people and for economic driver and to attract tourism. I'm very optimistic about this bill.
Thank you for that. Well, Caroline, would you like to add anything to that?
Yes, I just want to add to the accessibility piece. Lisa was very correct as far as accessibility. The average age of the off-road motorcyclist in Ontario right now, we just had the statistics on the weekend in a meeting, is 48 to 60 years old. So we're seeing people who are, in some cases, aging out as far as physical abilities. Eventually, they will have
Thank you very
difficulty.
much. The time is up. That concludes the second panel time. Thank you very much for all our 4 presenters. Thank you for your input and valuable experience in this field. So, are we ready? Okay. The next panel, is the next panel ready?